All right. Well, welcome to the Mother Architect podcast. I would love it if we could just start by you sharing who you are and what it is that you do.
Okay, so my name is Eileen Himel, and I own a company called EnPhase, In Tune with Autism. I began my company in 2018, and what it is that I do right now is I serve the non-speaking autistic community through the lens of presuming competence and training purposeful movement, really putting the brain-body disconnect at the forefront, really taking energetics into play because these guys are so highly sensitive. So what I do with them is letterboard. We utilize the letterboard, and we also do purposeful movement training. So this is just literally kind of exercises that are very conscious, using all of the prompts that we need to help them increase that brain body connection and have more control over their body. And so I also work with parents one-on-one as well. I have my master's in mental health counseling. I say that, but truly, like, that doesn't matter. I've done my own inner work, and I'm still constantly doing my inner work. So one-on-one coaching with parents, the container, as I like to call it, because that's what it is. It's like a space that we create together, high frequency, nice and safe. The parents and I work on really connecting them with who they are on the inside so they can connect with their child beyond words. And we're working on literally all the things. Like, we're working on their inner child. We're working on also any of the physical things that come into play with their child. So it's a pretty unique situation. So a lot of times it has to do with, okay, are you presuming competence correctly? Because, you've been so conditioned your whole life to think that your child isn't in there and that type of thing. So yeah, we do it all. So yeah, that's what I do.
How long have you been working with your company EnPhase? How long have you been doing this? Yeah.
Okay, great question. In 2018 is when I started my company. So that's when I started doing spelling with clients. Where I got my real experience with spelling was at a place called Recliff. And this is in Atlanta. And I was there for a few years. And that's where I met like Houston and JP and worked with them. So I've been doing spelling since 2018. Before that, while I was getting my master's and everything, I think this is like 2014, 13, 14, 15. I was working as an ABA therapist in a really nice clinic. Got a lot of experience there just with being around autism and getting really comfortable with it. But I've always been around autism. I have a younger brother it's a rare genetic disease, and he's not autistic, but he had a lot of the same like markers. So he's around a lot of kids with autism his whole life. And I worked at his school whenever I was in high school and in undergrad. So I was around autism always, and always really pulled to it. I was always just pulled to autism, even just the word since I was young. When we thought my little brother might have autism, it's like that word, I knew it meant something.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought up JP in Houston, because the telepathy tapes has been explosive and really miraculous. That's a big part of my journey, is when I had my spiritual awakening last year. I had a higher being communicate with me to begin teaching telepathy on TikTok. I didn't have an audience and I was very reluctant and even annoyed about it, because I'm like, telepathy isn't real. I Googled it. Like, there's no evidence of it. And I know I've had interesting synchronous experiences, and I've had precognitive dreams in the past. And that was when I was in a very religious stage of life. But I'm like, there's got to be an explanation, some kind of like subconscious explanation for that. Ultimately, I ended up talking about these things that were communicated to me, whether it was, an actual higher being or reflections of my own subconscious. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start teaching these concepts I'm intuiting to
Right.
people on TikTok, even though I'm not telepathic. I can't read people's minds.
But it
And
was happening to you. The energy was there. The
mm-hmm.
teaching was there, and you knew it wasn't coming. You weren't making it up, right?
Yeah, it wasn't something that I could have really made up on my own. There were these like layers of, it starts with thought. Everything starts with thought and consciousness. And I didn't have language for it. It was a lot of imagery. But it was my TikTok followers and people who began to follow me who are like, you need to listen to the telepathy tapes. And I was very stubborn. I didn't want to listen to it at first. But as soon as I started listening to it, I was mind blown. I'm like, okay, there's something to this intuition thing. I need to continue to press into the spiritual realm and learn more language for all of this, because I'm new. I don't know anything about the new age spiritual philosophy. Like, I don't know about ancient religions. I don't know about, I don't know enough about any of this. So the telepathy tapes was a huge gateway into anchoring my faith, anchoring belief in something more than what I was taught. And when I came across your videos, which is so interesting because as I shared with you, I had a dream about Houston Asher. I had a dream about him many months ago, and he had a spelling partner in the dream who looked like you, but I had never seen you before, met you before. I hadn't come across any of your videos. And only months later did I start seeing you on TikTok. And what I loved, and this was before I even saw that you had worked with Houston.
Wow.
Yeah, I had no idea until you posted recently, which is when I'm like, okay, I need to message her because she might be open to hearing what I have to say. That you not only are someone who facilitates spelling, you are not only someone who works in the sphere of like spelling to communicate, but you are very spiritually in tune. The messages that you share on your TikTok are very spiritually rooted in energy. And I was hoping that you'd be willing to share with us a little bit of your spiritual perspective and your worldview, and like what is this belief or this energy that you're operating out of.
I love that. And I love that setup. And yeah, this is what I live for right now. And honestly, I know that it's what I've been meant to do. The energy that I'm operating on, I was very familiar with when I was a little girl. And of course, that gets, pushed down. And basically, you start to think that it's not even real and it doesn't even exist. But when you start to spend more time in your inner world, through breath work, meditation, just being alone, you can really start to discern. I like to call it the perceiver space. It's no content. It's who you are at your very, very core. It's neutrality, and anything that you can observe and anything that comes in is content. Therefore, it's not you. So when you get more familiar with the perceiver space and understand that it's who you are and you're not attached to anything, you can very easily see what thoughts come in and what charges, because every thought holds a charge. What charges those hold? Like I'm talking energetic charge. So I mean, if you're just quiet and you would say like the word hello, that wouldn't hold much of a charge probably. And it's a conscious thought. It's not an unconscious thought. So many of us don't have that stabilized spot in the perceiver space where we can feel the neutrality of peace. By the way, it's like the most beautiful peace. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. And you're just like, hell yeah, let's do this some more, right? And we don't realize that our thoughts, and we know our thoughts create, right? But we don't realize that our thoughts are incessant and they're quick and they feed off of each other. And if we're not putting our power and our awareness, our perceiver power on it, it's just happening unconsciously, and it's creating unconsciously, and it's creating your world by default. And your default is going to be your programming from year 0 to 7, right? And usually that's fear programming, because it's like, hey, fit into this societal box, right? It's, hey, who you are, who your essence doesn't quite fit in here. Also, it's imagination, so it's not real. It's not real, right? So be this. Like for me, I've had like so many just when my ego was dying, and it still is, it was so rough because you start to identify with what the box has told you that you are. So I am a dumb, silly, white, pretty girl, like, and I started remembering this depth that has always been there. But I started remembering this depth, and it was like I was afraid to let it in. I was terrified because in so many different directions it's been conditioned out of me, even like with like my safety, like my physical safety, like I don't know how, not saying anything bad about my mom and dad. They're wonderful and lovely, but sometimes back then you'd get a spanking if you maybe let some of your real self out. And then, I went to Catholic school. I would ask these deep questions about like God and religion, and there would just be like crickets. And I'd be like, ew. Like, and the teacher's like, okay, turn to page 13 in your religion book, let's talk about sharing the good news, which I believe in that. But yeah, it's that. So, okay, worldview wise, I kind of want to talk about collectively what I think we're going through and what the non-speakers and their parents' role is in it. Because I kind of just shared my own individual experience of we've been conditioned by the stream of thoughts that are carrying usually negative charges, creating your default world. And you haven't been taught to sit in your perceiver space, God essence. Right? This is happening to everybody through their own perception and own filter, right? Yeah.
Could I ask you, before you go into that next part about non-speakers and their families, if you were to explain to a 5-year-old what that perceiver space is like and what that creating your reality is, like, how would you explain that to a 5-year-old? Because I think I would still consider myself as being in spiritual kindergarten right now. And I think a lot of people are newly awakened, and the language can be a little bit confusing because we're so used to our programming and the things we've been conditioned to believe that new words it sounds a little woo-woo and scary. So like, how would you explain that to someone who's brand new to the world of like energy and consciousness?
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. And yeah, you're right. Because I remember when I first started having little breadcrumbs of just shifting, I started reading a book that I think I recommended to you when I was like 20, and I'm 34 now. And it's like I knew it was resonating as true, but I was like, what the hell? I don't understand. Okay.
We're the same age.
Oh, are you 34?
Yeah, I'm 34. And that's so cool. And I have been listening to Eckhart Tolle a lot. I haven't read any books of his yet, but I've been listening to just different talks that he does on YouTube. And I'm like, yes, this is good stuff. Very helpful.
Him. I love him. When's your birthday?
December 29th.
Okay. Gotcha. I'm in September. So 27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's coming up.
Yeah, it's coming up. Okay, let's see what comes through. I'd never thought of this before, but let's see what comes through. So if I was explaining to a 5-year-old this concept, so I guess I would have them close their eyes. And I would say, okay, just imagine nothing. Just imagine blankness. Okay. And then I would tell them that the one who's looking out is them, and say, that's you. And you get to choose what thoughts you're going to have. You get to choose that. And I would say sometimes our thoughts can come very quickly, and sometimes they might not feel good, because you can think of a time whenever you were very angry, or a time where you felt very nervous. And this is hard. I don't know.
I'm loving it. I'm hanging on every word.
You're hanging over. Okay, let's see. And you can say, let's say like you get in a fight with your friend at school and you feel angry. Okay. So you can either feel those emotions and then just feeling them and let them go through. Because another fact I would tell them is that an emotion lasts 90 seconds. So if you just stick with it for 90 seconds, then you can let it go after that. But if you keep bringing these thoughts up of, I'm angry at my friend because of this, those are things that you, the one who's looking out, you're holding on to those things and you're hugging those things.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so the agreement, like you're saying, yes, that you're deciding that's true.
Mm-hmm. You're deciding it's important. You're deciding it's irrelevant to you. So what do you want to be important to you? Because you get to choose. If you and your friend have a fight, would you rather continue feeling all that anger and thinking all those thoughts, or would you rather focus on something else?
I love that. That's really great because, I mean, at its core, we grew up in a society that is based on materialism and behaviorism. And it's really interesting that you started in behaviorism in ABA.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're working out of a completely different space because I grew up in evangelical Christianity. So I would consider myself as like a follower of Jesus. And I believe that Jesus is who he says he is. Mm-hmm. And I see so much energetic alignment with everything that you're talking about and that you're doing in your work and in the teachings of Jesus. And he talks about the heart being the most important thing and what's going on the inside being the most important thing. And you're talking about it starting on the inside and at the heart of you choosing what you're putting your awareness on, choosing what you're assigning importance to, choosing what narrative you're going to attach. Because isn't that such a huge part of why we have so much conflict, not only societally, globally, and interpersonally, but like interpersonally in our families? Because when something happens and when a big emotion comes through, the thing that we are conditioned to do is to tell ourselves a story about it, which may or may not be true. It's highly subjective depending on the person who's experiencing whatever's happening.
All of that. Yes. So true. So true. And there's two things to piggyback onto that. One of those is that, so the ability to be able to choose a story that you would rather, or that would be more relevant to being more high frequency, high vibrational, because that's what we all would want, right? We would want to live in a world with the high emotions like love, courage. But most of us are down here with apathy, fear, depression, because we don't get to choose. Because our perceiver space isn't stable enough to be able to see from a perspective where we can actually choose. We're in it and we're lost. Does that make sense? Yeah, we're lost. And so we don't get to choose. And the thing that we are unconsciously default choosing is something that I'll call, and this is again probably language, spiritual language that people might not get, but it's like ego consciousness. Like as a whole, collectively, kind of what I was going to be getting at before, we are all being born into ego consciousness. So what that is a conceptual identity. Is this making sense?
It's totally making sense to me. And I think the people who follow my podcast, it'll make sense to them. I read this book by Julian Jaynes called, I think it's The Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. Ooh, and a big part of his theory of the evolution of consciousness, which I don't even necessarily agree with all of his conclusions, but I love the journey that he presents. He talks about how we didn't always see ourselves as an independent, like individual, like an analog I, which would be the ego. We see ourselves as separate from other people. But the bird's eye view, which you can tie that to the teachings of Jesus, love your neighbor because you are your neighbor. We are all connected. We are all one. When you zoom out and you're looking at a bigger picture, more objective, less egocentric, you're able to make clear decisions. Yeah. So I think that's totally making sense.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly what you said. It's a conceptual identity. And so it's like this thing that doesn't really exist. It's like a thought form that you're just putting all this energy into. And all of us, and it's, I mean, Eckhart kind of describes it as almost, you can think of it as like an outside entity that isn't you. It's this thing that needs a payoff to stay alive. And, you know, it always needs something. So it's kind of like, all right, I'm going to say this and behave this way so I can be seen as this. I'll give an example. Like, I'll wear my hair this way so I can be seen as being in style. I'll say these things so they accept me in this social box. It's not just like, okay, emanation of energy, that's true. And now it's being filtered through my voice and it resonates as truth. It's like energy. Okay, but I'm not paying attention to the truth of energy. What does the outside box want? All right, let me give it that so I can get the payoff of usually being accepted, right? And I think that that has made the pendulum of the collective, you know, human, right? Because we're all interconnected, a swing way too far in another way because it's so disconnected from truth and it's doing everything for some type of payoff, whatever it may be. So we're all just vibrating over here, like out of control, like need a breath. We're boiling over because we don't know who the hell we are. And I believe, you know, and some people like don't like this because they're like, no, the reason why autism is here is because of the vaccines and all that. I know a lot of people who had vaccine injuries, and I believe that, and I trust that that was their experience. But if we're talking about it creation wise, talking about it not understanding what God is doing because we're not God, you know, like we're through this filter right now. I believe that what creation or God is doing is he's sending people here who cannot show up as fakes. They're constantly vibrating in truth. So if they're picking up on energy from their environment, guess what? It's showing in their body. Because have you been around like a highly, like profoundly autistic person before?
I haven't spent a lot of close personal time with profoundly autistic people. And that's something that I'm realizing I was very afraid of when I was younger. And my mom actually, she worked in SPED classrooms when I was in high school. And so I'd go in her classroom and like, it is loud and chaotic in here. I feel stressed out in here. And I think also I'm realizing a lot of the societal conditioning through media, we're taught to fear it and to want to be as far away from it as possible. And that makes me so sad. But yes, I want to hear more of where you're going with that.
That gives me chills. I'm so glad you brought that up, though, because I love what you're doing here. You're raising awareness because these are human beings. These are human beings just like me and you who can't control their body. And like the masses being so like unconsciously conditioned to stay away. Like it's horrible. So I'm so happy you brought that up and we're honest about that because obviously it's not your fault. It's conditioning and it can be very overwhelming. That's another thing that I think can be talked about more. It's like, it can be true that these guys are very spiritually connected and they're brilliant and geniuses, but it can also be true that it's very, very challenging. You know, it's not like rainbows and butterflies. And we need people in their power with real integrity to be working with these people, which is why they're here, because that's what they're calling us to do. I can't remember the point that I was making before.
You had asked me, have you ever spent time with people?
Okay.
You were talking, I was actually tearing up with the direction you were going with that because you were saying like living in a total truth space and God sent these people. You had talked about how a lot of people are trying to define like what is autism, and a lot of parents have seen the correlation between vaccine injury, and there are many different lines of thinking as to what autism is and where it comes from and what causes it. But you were kind of taking a more spiritual angle, it seems.
Okay, yes. Thank you for bringing me back there. So I believe in the picture that God is painting because this is an ultimate earthly play. We've been on the pendulum swinging this side because everybody's so freaking attached to their socially acceptable roles and they're lost in ego consciousness. They have no stability in perceiver space or like God essence, like they're not plugged in. So we're it's swung too far that way, and now it's time to come back. So what does he do? He sends in these people who can't show up in that, socially acceptable way because they can't control their body. They can't use the regular means of communication, as in speaking. They're very much vibrating in the spiritual realm, and their bodies are highly sensitive, taking in energy from the environment everywhere. So it's like truth, truth, truth. So if they're dysregulated, and it's not anybody's fault or anything, it's just calling us back to more presence so we can actually acknowledge sensory sensation. I believe that God speaks to us through our bodies, and that's where our immediate experience is. And we've all just, like, most of us, before I was awakened, and before I spent so much time in my body, I dissociated throughout my 20s. I had extreme panic attacks, and I just pretended like it wasn't happening. Like, I was so panicky, having heart palpitations all the time. And I'm just like, oh, gotta go to work. Let's cry in the bathroom. Go, everything's fine. It was crazy. So they're vibrating at that. And you probably know how vibrations work. When things are vibrating, things that are in resonance come to it, right? Mm-hmm. So with the non-speakers, it's very interesting, because it's I think everybody goes through some kind of journey when you really do stick with working with the non-speakers. It's you're working with them through the lens that you're conditioned by. So at first you're kind of just triggered. You're like, oh my gosh, can your body just be because it will, JP, love him so much, but he was such a force, right? And so if you're not stable, you can't handle it. So first you're triggered, and then you realize, wait, they just start I don't know, since they're vibrating at truth, they just start peeling you back. They start peeling you back, and you start to pay attention to energy more. And just consequentially, you start to understand more about energy, and you understand that it's true and it's real. And they're not just acting this way because it's a behavior and they need to be reinforced in this way. We need to modify. No, that's bullshit. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it totally does. I've had a lot of internalized shame throughout my life because I am such a deep thinker and a deep person. Everything I look, not just look for, I am in the deep end all the time. And the truth that I speak, it has not always been rooted in love, but that's the currency that I have, and the currency that I interact with people socially in. And there's always been a lot of shame for that, because we have been socially conditioned to behave a particular way. And I think that's why people, neurotypicals or people that are late diagnosed, when you see someone who's profoundly autistic, it's uncomfortable, it's confronting. You don't know how to interact because you don't have a way to communicate. We've been taught that there's no one in there, and it just feels very disruptive. There really are no safe third spaces for them to just live and be a part of society. And so I love the work that you're doing and sharing what you're doing. I love what telepathy tapes is teaching people. I read Katie's book, and I just think, regardless of whether or not people align with their message, everyone needs to hear their story. Everyone needs to understand the experience that's happening there. And I think that's a good segue into what you were going into, and the work that you're doing with the parents and the non-speakers, and what you were saying about what their purpose is in your worldview, in the spiritual paradigm that you were sharing.
Okay. So the non-speaker's role is to vibrate at that truth. And you said, it's confronting when you're around them, because we've all been so set in our conditionings of what's real and what's not. And they're just vibrating at truth. And so just that in itself is confronting, right? So the non-speaker's roles, I think, which I think I might have shared this on a TikTok. Yeah. I used to struggle really hard with, why would a God put a child in a body that they can't control? I struggled hard, especially with one of the kids that I just loved so dearly. I wanted to adopt this kid. And I'm why would you do this to him? And I got the message, and I'm kind of just putting this there because it's coming through, so I know somebody needs to hear it. I got the message that these souls who are living this experience are expansive enough to handle their experience, and they're here to do a job. So like a weight was lifted off, because I was like, I don't even have to worry about my little sweet baby love, the one that I was talking about that I love so much, because he's so big, he's so expansive, like, and he's okay. He's okay. Yes, he's going to have challenges, but he can handle them. So I believe that their role is to vibrate at truth, to teach us true faith of believing before seeing, because that's the game you're dealing with, because we're literally conditioned. Like you said, you haven't even worked with autism, but you were with profound autism, and you were conditioned to think that they're not in there. So these people can't talk, and their bodies do bizarre things, like bizarre. I don't think people understand that. If somebody was over here who was autistic, like if JP was here, JP keeps coming in my mind. He also visited me in my dream the other night, but he'd be yelling, he'd be doing this, he'd be doing all the things, which love you, JP, so much. So what they're teaching us with spelling and all this is you got to embody true faith to be able to buy into this, basically. And they're also teaching us the power of and the truth that our belief matters. Because if you try to do spelling with someone and you don't believe, it is not going to work, because every cell in them and the way their physiology is doesn't work when you don't believe in them. That's just the way it is. That's one of the criticisms of it. But it's like, that's reality, though. Belief is momentous. Belief creates. So they're giving us all of that. And then collectively, the pendulum swung that so far that way. In my parent group last week, I said that, like, if humans were like a collective, like one surfer, like surfing a wave, we're like hanging onto the board. We're like struggling. And like, I believe that non-speaking autism parents are like the strength to push us up and stabilize us, because they're having to live in that vibration every day. They're having to integrate truths, and they're going to be the ones who have to develop their voice enough to start speaking on this. And there's more and more kids with autism coming in. Like, it's not decreasing. Mm-hmm. And so and so they're also fighting past their conditioning, because I see a couple of different types of parents. There's some who like got this, they're like boom, and they go for it. But a lot of them are dealing with their own conditioning of like, I can't speak up. I don't know what I'm talking about. I can't acknowledge that we have a big job. Or it's like they've been so beat down. They're just tired. They don't think that they deserve help and guidance. And this is all subconsciously, right? Like mm-hmm. under the surface. And society really does. It's the undertones of like, yes, stay out of the way. Because I get that. I had a younger brother, right? I remember the grief that my parents went through. Like, it was rough. As a kid, it felt like the whole world was crumbling. It was like, he doesn't matter. He's a problem. Like, this is not right. When he was right. Like, my brother's like an angel. He is an angel. Like, they are right. You're meant to be here, right? Yeah. Bringing us back to truth.
I like what you were saying about these are not weak souls. These beings that inhabit these bodies are a lot more potent and advanced in experience and in their energy than what we realize. Here, we judge everything on behavior, appearance, reputation. And we have these like social hierarchies of how we judge people, how we decide or assign value. And that's been crippling for me, because even though I'm very privileged in so many ways in my experiences and opportunities, there was nothing about me that anybody would really say is particularly special. But I knew there was a force inside of me that had something very special to share and bring to the table. But everything about the environment that I was born into, it was as if I was born into the perfect contrasting oppositional force to to challenge me to kind of push through it, almost like a dandelion pushing through the concrete, the crevices of the concrete. And it's so interesting you phrased it the way that you did, because early on in my journey of grappling with what I was learning through the telepathy tapes, I was doing a lot of seeking and meditating. And one of the things that came through is like, these individuals are on a mission. And it might seem to us that they need our help, and they do in very practical ways.
Yes.
But I think we need their help more than they need our help. And there is an advanced nature to their souls, that they are not being sent here against their will. They're not being sent here and being tortured because that's who God is and God wants them to go through struggle. Yeah. This is a collective experience that we're all in. And this is just like, you know, being authentic with you, what's coming through for me right now. Yeah. This is a collective experience that we're in, and we're all working toward a common goal. There's all of these distractions and surface level conflicts that we're so easily drawn into. Yeah. But at the core of it, like you said, we are all working on holding a frequency. I was going through this morning and just like binging through all your videos. Yes, 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 yes. And I was writing down the different things that I wanted to talk about. And one of the things that you talk about, you bring up repeatedly in your videos, is the unconditional love dimension, and how they're just like, they don't have any of the BS of the bot. There's nothing about their physical experience that would allow them to align with ego. Like, that's just not even in their awareness. So they are just embodying who they are all the time, because they're in an unruly body that doesn't represent who they are. I even wrote down one of the quotes that you said, because I'm like, I need to put that on my mirror and say it every day. It might be somewhat of a paraphrase. Knowing who you are is not bound by the vehicle of the body or societal conditioning or acceptance. And that's the frequency that these people are holding. And as you're talking about resonance, and when you're resonating, you're going to attract other things that are resonating at that same frequency. So I'm a musician. I'm very into music. My job is I work as a music mentor with people of all ages, but a lot of kids. And I work with a lot of neurodivergent kids.
I love that.
So music, I mean, everything can come down to music. The universe is music. We're all vibrating. We're all resonating. Everything is movement. And then you also talk about holding the frequency of faith. And you talk a lot about it on TikTok. So if anybody wants to learn more about everything that you're sharing here, they can go to your TikTok and see more in detail. But for here and now, what would you speak to those things, like unconditional love dimension and holding the frequency of faith?
There's a lot of different words you can put on it, and there's a lot of different lenses you can look through when explaining something like this. But ultimately, we're all doing this earth play, and where we were before, which was ego consciousness, allowed us to play and be assumed to these roles. You know, if you were a king back in the day, you were better than everybody else, right? Or if you were poor, you were poor, you know, like you weren't. It's a hierarchy, right? When the truth is, truth is, nobody's better than anybody else. You know,
amen.
And I love like what you talked about in your own experience about who you came here to be, just like created like the perfect means for your growth. I guess I'm using different words, but and that could be true probably for everyone. Like I feel that way too. Like I feel like I came here and I was accepted. I was accepted in so many different ways. Yet there was this depth inside of me, which is like my God essence, that was either it was pushed down or I was embarrassed by it. And like me rejecting that was hell on earth. It was. I had a very brutal, hard time. Like I had a lot of, and I don't like to say it in a woe is me kind of way, but I do like to share it because people just think, oh, like they have everything. It's all good or whatever. I was deeply lonely, very deeply lonely. The way that we're all conditioned isn't in the vibration of unconditional love. It's literally conditional love lines, because it's like, I have to act this way and walk this line to be safe. You know, when you're little, you start to learn from your environment and your experiences. And I like to say that you get thorns. Like something will be really, really emotionally triggering and you get a thorn. And so you're like, oh, okay, that's not good. That's red. That's tender. I'm not going to go there. And I'm just going to keep it unhealed. Right. And so you start to get thorns all over your emotional body. And so you have to walk these lines in between the thorns. And that's the conditional love lines. Like you were saying, it was like these non-speaking autistics don't have the ability to create an ego because they can't with their body. So they experience all the same things, but they're going through the whole process. So they're seeing the whole other side of the coin instead of just, okay, there's a thorn there. Now I have to walk around it. So we never hear truly. Maybe when we're little, we might be in that vibration because we're born and we're not conditioned yet by the limitations of the physical world and what's accepted about ourselves and what's not. If you do experience the vibration of unconditional love when you're little, you forget it. And that's the saddest thing for everyone. And there's a lot of people in this collective story who are still living in the ego, of course. But those of us who are waking up, we can't spend another breath in the old self. You know, we can't spend another breath in the conditional love lines because you feel like you're dying, or you might physically start dying.
It's like when people talk about raising your vibration and raising your frequency, I experienced an entire season of physical symptoms. I have a few different chronic illnesses, but there was a sudden onset as soon as like I was launching upward spiritually, moving into a more unconditional love space. My body would start swelling up and experiencing low vibrational energy as this like physical dissonance that would make me ill. And it's, once you have had that taste of the unconditional love, it's almost like going backwards or being around darker energy, or I don't even want to say darker, but more egocentric energy. It's like physically painful to exist in that space. It's physically palpable. And for me, like I've had these like physical experiences where I enter a space and suddenly my body starts breaking out in rashes. And I'm like, there's something that I'm not aligned with in here. Yeah. And I need to leave this place immediately. And so I think it's a lot more, I know it's a lot more literal than what we may have previously understood about unconditional love or frequency, vibration, and all of that.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. And thanks for sharing that experience. I've had similar experiences where it's like, now that I've expanded, there is no way that I can even stay here in a certain situation for more than like an hour, right? I think there's a lot there that has to do with like boundaries and all that, but putting that aside.
Totally.
And so you saying it being more literal and more real, more than just, oh, it's a frequency. Yes, 100%. Because in our bodies, we're always holding a certain frequency. We're always embodying a certain level of vibration or frequency. So like when we say the love, unconditional love frequency, it's just not like a woo-woo conceptual thing. It's like an actual vibration. And what it is expansion. It's truth. It's not contraction. It's understanding. It's higher wisdom. Like that's what lives there.
Yeah.
You know, most of us have embodied, because of ego consciousness and our conditioning, of like shame, fear, and like that's where we're just living. Most people are just perpetuating that reality with, again, their thoughts. Yeah. And they're holding that frequency.
Kind of uniting some concepts that I grew up with when we talk about the kingdom of heaven. And we've talked to, like, I grew up with this idea of heaven and hell, kingdom of heaven. What I am learning is that this love dimension and the love frequency that you're talking about, this is what the kingdom of heaven is. and how Jesus talks about the kingdom of heaven belongs to little children. And as we're talking about it being literal and real, we tend to, in our conditioning, think that imagination is trivial, that it's frivolous, it's child's play. To put it in a way that is tangible, it is a technology that we get to use to transcend the shame that we've been conditioned in, and the shame lenses and all of those thorns that you were talking about that kind of hedge us into a very narrow line of thinking. And as you were talking, I was just thinking of some things along my journey in the last year that have helped me to maintain that connection and to sustain that vibration of the love frequency, or the kingdom of heaven, where it's like everything in my world becomes more vibrant. I notice the most beautiful colors and plants, and then these synchronicities begin happening. And it's like I see beauty happening in an abundant way when I'm living in that zone and that frequency. And imagination has been an enormous tool in getting there. And even if we just want to bring it, you have your master's degree in all of this, and I'm just kind of like an armchair student. I love to read, but what I'm learning is like our bodies do not know the difference between what we're actually experiencing and what we're imagining. So some of the exercises I've done in like deepening my experience and keeping me in the love frequency is like, how would I see my body if my physical body reflected what my spirit feels when I'm connected to that love dimension? And I see myself as like a cute little pink alien that has little feather wings all over my body to help me stay in vibrational movement all the time. And as fictional and fantastical as that is, imagining like, okay, that's how I'm going to see myself as I'm moving through the world, even if no one else sees it. I'm holding that frequency with a lot more stability and confidence than if I were to go through the world thinking of myself as like this body, this vessel that I'm in. And I wanted to share that because it's very easy to get caught up in a narrative of like a particular belief matters. And a particular agreement with a narrative matters. And while there are some things that are universally true or not true, like we're speaking to the same concepts. And I can just tell that we're aligned on a lot of the same things, even if our experiences are different and our words for it are different. And I love that with the telepathy tapes, the non-speakers are showing us that being and existing is so much more than just words. It's so much more than just words. And I was wondering if you have any particular encounters or experiences. You've worked with Houston and JP from the telepathy tapes. If there are any experiences that were like profoundly impactful or like paradigm shifting, if there's any particular moments, would you mind sharing any of those or anything that comes to mind?
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, so many crazy experiences. By the way, thank you for sharing what you shared about your visualization and imagination, because I think that's so important, because people are like, well, how do I do this? How do I hone in on this love frequency? And I think everybody's going to have a different way, because, your own essence is unique. And so you have to follow your path. So I love that you shared that. I do similar things. Okay, so yeah, I've had some crazy experiences. I mean, what do you want to hear? This is like a lot.
I mean, I tend to love anything that feels miraculous, that would be outside of the realm of what we believe to be true about reality. Like just paradigm shifting, like, I mean, anything in line with the ESP, telepathy, whatever you're willing to share, like blow my mind.
Okay, I will. I have a few stories coming to mind. Well, number one, the fact that telepathy is real in general, and I found out that on my own, that's freaking mind-blowing. I won't tell that story because I feel like everybody hears so much of it from the telepathy tapes, but if you have any doubt in your mind, it's real, you guys. Like, it's real. I could hold up a board, Houston, JP, or whoever, if whatever word I was thinking, they could say it. I would ask Houston questions in my mind and he would answer. This is real. this is 100% real. I would also like play jokes with them. Like some of them, they would be like in an open flow, you know, and I would just think like a silly word, like fart or something. And then they would like go to spell it and they stop. And they just like, I'm like, okay, just, you know, just, I don't know. Okay, here we go. Let's tell some stories. So 3 stories come to mind. One was pretty early on. I was working with Houston, and it was during COVID times, and I was in Atlanta. My grandpa was in Louisiana, and I had grown up with my grandpa. When I was in 2nd grade, we moved in with him after my grandma died. And so we were just tighter than ever. And my grandpa got sick. And long story short, I flew down there and nobody got to visit him in the hospital. Long story short, physically, he died alone in the hospital. And yeah, this is before I was meditating every day. This is before I was on a spiritual journey at all. Like, yeah. And my heart was just so broken. Like, it was broken, and I was just hardcore struggling. Like, really, like, why did he have to be alone, you know? And then one day, oh God, I can't even believe I'm telling this story. I think this is the first time I tell this story like live. And I think Katie knows about it. I think I had told her about it. I'm not even sure. So we're doing the lesson. I think the lesson was like on like sea turtles or something. And I asked him like an open question about the lesson, and I'm just holding up the board. And he starts, I'm taking myself back to the moment. He starts like smiling and looking at me, like getting in my face, like giving me eye contact like this, like not making any noises, just looking at me. And, you know, autistic people do bizarre things. Like this type of stuff happens. So I'm just like, all right, come on, Houston, like get out of my face. Like, let's go. Like, answer the question, you know, holding the board. And then he starts speaking as if he's my grandpa. So essentially, I guess he's channeling my grandpa or whatever. And so it was like my dearest granddaughter. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. It was like, don't worry. My soul met my grandmother and one of my cousins who had died early whenever it left my body. So it's like, please don't worry. And something about like, keep being kind, something like that. And I'm just shaking. I'm looking around the room. I'm like, is Papa here? Because I feel like I understand spirit so much different now. Like back then I was like, is he here? Like, is he a ghost? Like, what's going on? And that happened. And I'm just like stunned. I just like don't know what to do. And I'm just sitting there, just like kind of scared. And then one of the other workers in the next room with someone else like comes in, she pokes her head in and she's like, hey, are you okay? I was like, yeah, like I'm okay. And honestly, I don't even remember. She might have said something like so-and-so said my name, like whoever she was spelling with. It was just a lot. So that happened. And so I was like, wow, oh my God. Okay. So it provided me comfort, but the craziest thing is at the time, my brain still questioned it. So it's a beautiful experience that I love now and I cherish now. Back then, it was a lot. I didn't know what was happening. Yeah. And I think I did tell Katie, and Katie was like, oh yeah, trust that, you know.
Our brains don't have, especially if you know, you hadn't, you were priming the way for the telepathy tapes, but you didn't have a telepathy tapes to prime the way for you yet. So you were experiencing it without that shifted paradigm yet.
Right. Well, it's like I had heard a few things about like they might be this and that, you know, like they might see things or whatever, but I was nowhere in that like belief yet, you know. Yeah. And I was it was crazy because I was really struggling that morning, like very much struggling with it. So yeah.
That there's so many things that come up as you share that.
Mm-hmm.
During COVID, that was one of my inconsolable fears. I am not afraid of dying. I've never been afraid of death, but I was terrified of dying alone, and it broke me that so many people were dying alone.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that you lost your grandfather, and I'm so sorry that you were not able to be there with him.
Yeah.
And what this awakening has done for me is shown me that no one's ever truly alone, proximity wise.
Yeah.
And it's brought me a lot more peace with my family, because there's a lot of division in my family.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what, we might not all be on the same page. We might not all be in the same state, but we're always connected.
That's right. 100%.
That's such a cool experience that you had.
Yeah. And I believe that now. Now I have no doubt. Of course he wasn't alone. You know, after that, I liked near-death experiences when I was a child. Like, I was very intrigued. But after that, I've become obsessed with near-death experiences. I watch them all the time since that moment, you know? And so that also makes me think, yeah, he was not alone. And yeah, it was beautiful that Houston could give me that message so concretely, you know?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So was that one of the first experiences that you had that was beginning to like shift your understanding of what reality is and what communication is?
Totally. You know, besides me experiencing telepathy myself with these guys in the beginning, that was probably one of the first experiences. And it's like all this information that aligned started coming up at that time, like Joe Dispenza, you know, like that type of stuff. I don't know if you know who that is. You would love him. You should look into him. He's basically the guy who's like, our thoughts create our reality. He like cracked his spine and like healed his spine with his mind.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. You need to look it up. But like, it's like all this information started coming in. So I was getting this information of like, physical reality isn't what I thought it was, but it's almost like I was in that vibration. So I started vibrating on that type of information. So yeah, that was one of the first experiences. And I have two more if you want to hear them.
I would love to hear them. And I'm sure anyone listening wants to hear them too. I don't like to sensationalize the experience of other people, especially like I feel responsible, if that's even the right word, not to sensationalize, even to the point of editing my own experience. Like, I really filter how I share about my own experience sometimes, because I think a lot of people seek after the sensational parts and not realizing like there is an entire grounded element to all of this like being here and now. But I also think so many of us have known deep down that this is real for a long time, that it is so encouraging and gives hope and fuel to keep going when we hear of the miraculous stories.
Yeah.
So please share.
Absolutely. And I agree with all of that for sure. Okay. So next story. This is another just like mind blowing to me. Like, I cannot even believe this. It's one of those moments that you have where you just like kind of stop and you're like, holy shit. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, it's almost like this terrifying feeling because you're not living in what you thought was real. So Houston gave me like this really awesome metaphor one day, and it was about how we are, as humans, we wear masks so tightly that we don't even know that we're wearing masks. And he said something to the effect of like, we're the driver and not the vehicle, and we're racing around having no idea that we're the driver. He used a select few words that I just thought were kind of like odd at the time. But I was like, okay, like he said, the mask represents human error. That's what he said, human error. So I'm like, okay, it was great, profound. Houston's a genius always. It's just like, okay, cool. Like not on the spiritual journey at all. 5 years later, you know, fast forward 5 years, I moved back to Louisiana. I wake up, have the most brutal wake up. It's painful as hell. It's like, oh my gosh, the things that I used to live for, I don't have the energy for it anymore, but who am I, you know? And I was just on the hunt for like spiritual information. Like, I was just seeking and like reading, and I was just hibernating with like books, you know? And so this one spiritual teacher that I really resonate with, and if you haven't heard of him, you would love him. His name is David Hawkins. And yes. You know, he's the one who calibrated consciousness and made the emotional vibration frequency, like thing, like love up here, fear down here. But so I'm reading his book It's quotes that he wrote. It's just like a book of quotes that he said. And so there's one quote. In fact, I think I have the book up there. One quote, he talked about humans wearing masks and it being human error. And I just went, what? Like, I feel like Houston was maybe tuning into that moment where he knew I was going to read that, or like, because it was like, what? Oh my God. Like, Houston said this, you know? It wasn't the exact quote, but those words, I'm like, oh, what?
That's so interesting.
I was in my bed just like, yeah, it was really big for me. It was really big.
Yeah. I think a lot of these non-speakers are doing more than what they're letting on.
Oh yeah. Like, I almost feel like sometimes Houston and some of the others were just like, probably like this with excitement about like seeing my journey, and they've just been such a big part, you know? Yeah.
That's so cool. I'm curious what you make of that concept now, human error being the mask, and what does that mean to you?
I think that it is just what the word says it is. It's an error. It's not right. You know, we're wearing a mask and it's glued very, very tight, and we don't see it's a mask. We think it's us. And so that's erroneous, you know? It's like loosening, and all of us who are waking up, we're like putting oil on, we're loosening up the glue, we're starting to see right here in front of us, okay, wait, this is the mask. This isn't actually who I am. It's the error in our ways of just having that social identity and thinking that's who we are. Because if we were who we truly were, we would have all of the natural, beautiful things, like doing things out of goodwill instead of doing things out of obligation, you know, really having true compassion instead of like wanting to have compassion. I feel like that was my struggle for the longest. Like, every single night growing up when I was little, I would like say thank you for everything because I wanted to feel grateful, but I actually didn't. I didn't know how to feel grateful. You know, like that grace came in later on.
I so resonate with that. Yeah, the knowing somehow that the experience that I was in was a counterfeit version of what I wanted to be experiencing, but not understanding where the disconnect was or how to repair it. And what we're in the process of, like, I guess if you want to put a definition to spiritual awakening, it's like repairing the authentic connection between what our intentions are and what we're actually experiencing.
Oh my God, that is it. You just hit the nail on the head. That's it.
That is such a cool concept. I think too, like going back to the ego, a lot of what the ego is the mask. A lot of the ego is seeing ourselves as the self. And rather than seeing you in front of me, or you are just another limb or another finger of the hand of humanity that we're collectively experiencing together. So as we're communicating via these like very primitive means of language, I'm seeing you as like, you're just me from another point of view. And we're learning to connect the dots again. We're connecting all the dots between one another again.
That's right.
And it wouldn't have happened in this way for me without these spellers.
Oh, and that's, you know, there's a reason why so many people resonated with telepathy tapes. There's a reason why everyone started paying attention and why it knocked Joe Rogan off of the first spot. Like, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's two different experiences. You said you had another one?
Okay, there's one more. Okay, this one's pretty crazy, which I've literally told my husband and maybe like one other friend. So these people see auras, you know, and I'm not very good with visualization. Like, every now and then I'll have a beautiful like visualization that I feel like straight from spirit, but like I feel like my third eye's like shut. Okay, it's like shut. I'm very much into my like claircognizance, like my knowing and my clairsentience feeling. Again, this is way before I started my meditation journey, way before I really woke up. I'm still fully in the role, and we're working at the place that I worked at with Houston and JP and a lot of others. And me and my coworkers are in this back lunchroom. There's no windows or anything. And my coworkers are in there. We're all just talking, joking around. And I'm seeing a glare around everyone. walking around everyone. So I'm like seeing as if there was no color. It was like yellowish, whitish, but I'm seeing with my eyes around everyone. And I like keep on blinking, like, is this really there? And I keep like rubbing my eyes, and my friend is like talking to me, and I was just like not processing what she's saying because I'm trying to figure out, am I really seeing this, you know? And I was just like, holy crap. And so during that time, off and on, I would see this around people. And again, fast forward probably like 4 or 5 years later, I'm listening to a David Hawkins book. I think it might have been is either Letting Go or like Power versus Force. But he says people who have the ability, like spiritual abilities, if you spend time around them, you might start to experience that channel or that ability as well. And he gave the example, like if you're around people who, you know, who see auras, then you might start seeing auras. And I was like, oh my God, I was probably really seeing that, you know? And it was just insane to me because you're seeing something that you wouldn't usually see. Right?
Yeah, that's insane. How long did that last for you?
That was like off and on probably for like a few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed like with the phases of awakening, there's like a flooding of spiritual gifts that sometimes it recedes. I know when I was going through the bulk of the awakening, it hit me so intensely, but I was actively like, once I had the first vision, that was like, okay, there's so much more. Like, cause I started getting these visions and I'm like, there's so much more than what I have previously believed. Then I started actively like praying and meditating and doing these. I would create my own little ceremonies to give me a flow and to integrate creativity and imagination. And I would say, okay, creator of everything that is, I want the truth and I want as much of it as you think I'm prepared to handle.
Wow.
And I was seeing energy in the sky. I was seeing energy fields. I was seeing auras. I was like getting these downloads about other people.
And so were you seeing it with your eyes or like your
I was seeing it with, I think, my third eye. There's also, I see things with my eyes too. And I'm like, do I just have like astigmatism or something? Because I'm like, everything is glowing, but the world becomes technicolor. But it was so intense. Like, I don't think I have, and I still don't think I have the spiritual maturity to handle it. I didn't know what to do with the information I was getting. I didn't know like where the boundaries are of what you communicate to other people. And then it was like, I said it to another friend. I'm like, I felt like I was a monkey with a machine gun. Like, I just didn't know what to do with any of it. And so it's receded quite a bit, which is good because it's stabilizing and grounding. Yeah. And I'm having to do just actual work. I'm like reading and studying and researching. Yeah. My physical frame as it is, like, I can understand to a very small degree why the vessel and the body of these non-speakers it's unruly, because when you are that in tune with that much energy, it's overwhelming and destabilizing, at least where things are currently. And I think some of us, like, we just all have very different paths. Yeah. And I'm on a more analog path for whatever reason, the journey that I'm on. I have access to those things. And I think we all do. One of the guests that I've had, Tia Michelle, she has talked about how we all have access to all of these gifts, but we come into contact with them to different degrees. We experience them in different degrees. And like these non-speakers, they have a very intense connection to the spiritual world and energies that most of us are not in tune with. Some of what I'm starting to understand is the collective of all of us has to assimilate into the rhythm, and it'll come in more and more as more of us wake up. Yeah. And it'll begin to be more normal for everyone, where it's like we're all going to eventually be seeing each other's auras. Maybe it's not going to be for many generations to come. Maybe it'll be within our lifetime. Like, who knows? Yeah. But it's consistent across so many different cultures and beliefs in science and religion. Yes. All over the world. It's different words for it, but they're communicating the same thing. Right. So yeah, it's so interesting how these things materialize. And I was a little sad when some of the intense like visuals were going away.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it was more grounding and stabilizing. And it's been easier for me to continue to relate with the people around me.
Yeah.
Whereas I almost was like, okay, I can just go live on a mountain somewhere by myself and I'll be fine.
Wow.
But that's not what my purpose is like at this time.
Right. And you're understanding that. Yet all those things were coming in with a knowing of like, this is truth. Like, this isn't coming from me or conditioning. It's like higher wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're here in these human bodies to learn things the slow way and the steady way.
Right.
And
the
I'm
contrast,
learning,
right?
Yeah. I'm learning to slow down. I'm learning that like it's a joyful thing to sit and read a book and to grapple with ideas in a very slow and meaningful way. That like for me, I don't thrive well in educational environments. It's very overstimulating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I resented anything that had to do with learning for a long time.
Wow.
Because I associated it with like the negative environment.
Right.
But I've fallen in love with learning again. And I have dyslexia pretty severely. So like reading, I miss things a lot and I have to reread things a lot. Mm-hmm. But the love and the joy of learning has really reinvigorated my like joy and passion for reading. And I'm working through a lot of those difficulties that I have. And I'm like, you know what, if I have to reread it 3 times, that's okay.
Right.
And I'm going to just try to enjoy intaking new information. And it's been really fun to get back into learning a lot of different things.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah. And I resonate with that too. When you wake up and you start to shed some of the mask, it's almost like what Jesus says, like being reborn. You're being reborn. You're experiencing things again where you get to, sit there and reread it 3 times. And maybe when you were learning how to read, it was like, now it's like, this is my experience, and
I have been born again. That is
born again. Yeah.
I have been born again. And that's the language of the Bible I see it so differently now. I'm like, it's like energetic concepts that we've like overly literalized.
That's right. That's right.
That's where the disconnect was for me for a long time, because I was ready to walk away from everything.
Yeah.
But there was always a little tiny strand of me that's like, there's something to it to reconcile, but I don't know what that thing is.
Right. Mm-hmm. Same. Yeah. I look at it a lot differently too now. Yeah. It used to just be like the word, and God is a man in the sky. And like, when I die, he's going to say if I did right or wrong. And like, it's so much, it's a living truth. It's so much more than that. It's energetic. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to make a point to share how we got introduced and how we connected with one another. And then also, I would just love to see you receive and respond to getting more details about it as we're face to face here. So part of my journey has been having these dreams and visions. And one of the dreams that I had many months ago, I don't remember the exact date, but I have a lot of Houston dreams, which is so interesting. They're very unusual from like the types of dreams that I would usually have. And there are very specific markers in them. And every time I have a Houston dream, I write them down. And one of the dreams that I had, we were in, and I say we, I was with a group of people. There were a couple of my family members and then some other people. And we were in a house that was hedged off. We were hiding from, or not hiding, but taking shelter from this like apocalypse that was happening outside. And it was like some kind of zombie vampire apocalypse. We were taking shelter inside of this house. And I drew the floor plan because it was so clear and vivid. And I'm upstairs and I suddenly feel the presence of Houston. And I'm like, Houston is here. And I've just wanted to meet him ever since I saw him on the telepathy tapes and read the Book of Heaven. So I run downstairs and he's ready to greet me with a big hug. And there is a woman with him, and the woman is you. She has your face. And you were specifically his communication partner and helping him communicate. You had a letter board with you. And it's you know how dreams are weird dream logic, just kind of going from one snapshot to another. We all have like different roles in this house, and I'm helping prepare a meal. I remember being in the kitchen and you're sitting on a patio, which is hedged off. Like there's tall hedges around this entire property. You're sitting at a patio table, like a glass patio table with Houston with the letter board. And I'm inside doing the dishes and I can see you both through the window. And I'm like, is Houston reading my thoughts right now? I better think good thoughts. I better think good thoughts so that I keep the energy good in the house.
Yeah.
And your face was just so clear and so vivid in this dream. And then at some point, I was out on the patio with my brother, and he points out the house is bleeding. And there's tree sap that is red as blood coming out of the house. And I researched later, there is a tree that grows exclusively in Yemen that has, I forget the exact name of it. It's dragon's blood, I think might be the colloquial name. And it is known to be a healing agent that it's a very highly sought after sap for medicinal reasons. And the wood is also like highly sought after. And so I just wrote down this dream because I have a lot of different dreams. Some of them have a very spiritual connotation. Some of them are just dreams. And it's a lot clearer to me now, like how to tell the difference.
Right.
But I thought it was just a dream of my own subconscious, my higher self guiding me. And months later, I come across your videos and I'm like, I know her face. And then you're talking about autism. And then you're talking about spelling. I'm like, okay, follow. And so I see your videos from time to time and I'm always like liking them. And like, I'm not going to tell her that I saw her in the dream because that's weird. And I have shared with Katie about how I have Houston showing up in my dreams.
Yeah.
And I totally understand. She probably gets like bombarded with emails.
There's probably a lot of people. Yeah. Because he might be showing up in everybody's dreams. He's always in my dreams too.
Yeah. And so she was not quite very interested in entertaining the idea that he might actually be visiting me in my dreams, which is totally fair.
Right.
Like I don't claim that he actually visited me.
Yeah.
But it felt that way.
It meant something. Yeah.
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 And one day, like maybe must have been just a couple weeks ago, you posted for the first time a quote of Houston and a picture of you two together. And I'm like, no way. And at first I was like, I just need to tell her about this. I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. But then I'm like, oh wait, I have a podcast. We should have a conversation. And maybe that dream was like the whole reason to
reach out.
Yeah. That connection to actually reach out and to nudge me into like having this conversation with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I get chills when you just say it. And in my own dreams, usually I use them as kind of like a personal development tool. It's the subconscious speaking to you. So a lot of times I feel like the characters in our dreams represent a part of us. But I also believe that dreams can be precognition because I've experienced it with people, not myself. I think I had one dream that like came true, but I know a lot of other people who have that. And then also they send messages and they mean something, whether it's we're supposed to make a connection or whatever it may be. So if the person is vibrating as true to me or leaning more towards truth, I'm like, I wasn't like, I didn't get a bad feeling like, oh no, that's weird, And it's very, very interesting because the bleeding house means something to me. When I was in my undergrad, I was taking a class. It was paranormal psychology and altered states of consciousness. And we learned about, quote unquote, paranormal things that were happening that have been documented. Right. And I want to say this was like in the middle of the US. I can't remember what state it was, but they had these people who lived in this house that was bleeding. Blood was coming out of it. Like it was documented, right? And I remember being obsessed with this case. And gosh, I wish I could remember what it was. I'll have to look it up again. But I was obsessed with the case. I was so intrigued by it. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, There you go. That means something.
That's
So
wild.
that is wild, right? Because it would be one thing if it's like, oh, okay, you had the dream. But like the fact that like it meant something personally and with one of my experiences in life, you know?
Yeah, I'd be so interested to dive into that case and what the circumstances were surrounding it.
Me too.
I might look it up when we're done today.
Yeah, send it to me if you find it. Because I want to say that like a while back, I had tried to look it up and I mean, not rigorously, but I hadn't like seen anything on it. But let me know if and when you find it. Yeah.
I will.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you because you've talked about New Earth in your videos.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a concept that I'm more and more every day getting behind. I'm always very reticent to adopt popular language or trending language.
Yeah.
And it is trending language right now in spiritual communities and people who are part of this like collective spiritual awakening that's happening. The more that I am growing and learning on this journey, I think that's a perfect way to describe what we're moving toward. Mm-hmm. We're in a renewal process. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the nature of life, biology.
The nature of evolution, whether it's consciousness or physical evolution. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you, what does New Earth look like to you? And what do you see that we are moving toward as a society, as individuals, as human beings?
Well, I believe first off that whatever our inner world is vibrating at, that's creating our outer world. So obviously collectively, the earth that we live on right now today is a addition problem of collectively what our inner worlds are all vibrating at, pushed out, right? So I believe the new earth will be the entire whole of humanity vibrating at a higher frequency, dimension. And when you're on your own inner journey, just as you and I were talking, you know, I'm not who I was 10 years ago. Like I'm not who I was. I'm a whole new person. So it's kind of like the earth that we live on right now is going to become a new earth from what signals we're sending out and how we're vibrating on the inside. As far as what that looks like, it looks like more honest truth, like no deception, like energy vibrating, and then it's pushed out and it's honest, almost like telepathy, right? Like you're giving the telepathic message. You're not putting any social conditioning on it or this is mine or grabbing or whatever. It's just like, this is the emanation of energy. Here's the truth. And we're living in the truth all the time. So there's no feeling of like, when you live there, there's no feeling of like lack, like, oh, I didn't get what was mine. Or I feel like I'm getting kind of like vague, but it's just people vibrating in truth, having real compassion, no obligation. You're doing things out of a true goodwill of love. You're in a very magnetic place to attract more good things, and you're focusing on what's relevant and helpful, not the ego payoff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness, all of that resonates like so deeply. We're moving toward not living in a state of wanting or wantness, but we are perfectly here in the now. Everything we create and draw to ourselves is going to be expansion and addition, not for the sake of filling a void or acquiring, but it's moving to us, not us going out and harvesting or taking.
Not efforting. It's no efforting.
And that's been an interesting shift for me, because I feel like all I've ever known is lack and wanting, feeling like I don't have enough.
That's right.
And I still find myself like I was having a really rough day the other day, just driving around, and I was really overstimulated. I hate driving. Really overstimulated. It was a muggy day. I was just thinking of this situation in my life that is really stressful, and the ego was like arguing of like why these people are wrong and I'm right. And like,
I love that you use that language, because that's part of the practice, because don't try to hide from it. The ego is there. It has a lot of energy and it's very strong. And so you need to watch it, point it out, talk about it. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like literally in a store. I had my headphones on and I'm like looking for a dress for a wedding I had to go to yesterday. And I'm like frustrated, flipping through the rack. And suddenly I had this moment of like, dude, you know this. You know that you're lacking for nothing. Time isn't the way that we perceive it to be.
Yeah.
Time is happening all at once, past, present, future.
Mm-hmm.
You're already one with the people that you feel like you're separated from or disconnected from.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were in a place where it wasn't about proving who's wrong or who's right, how would you just communicate honestly to these people what it is that you desire? Because what you're doing right now is you're trying to make an argument for why you're hurt. You're trying to make an argument for how they hurt you. And that's okay. And you're communicating out of that pain. But that's not the truth, because you're not disconnected. Whatever happened, you're doing the old thing of spinning narratives. And I think New Earth is going to be a place where narratives don't exist. There's not going to be any narrative other than we're all one. We're all working together. I love that you talked about deception being irrelevant. We're all living on this planet. We are all in this very chaotic political climate. We're seeing these things happening every single day that feel destabilizing and demoralizing, and it's so easy to react and to have an opinion, and we all have our individual narratives. But I think narrative is an enormous weapon of deception that is being used to divide people, to confuse people, and to create more chaos. You know, it's an energy harvesting tool. And I mean that literally. I don't mean that in some like sensationalized way. But it's like, if all of our energy is going into arguing with people on the internet about our political opinion, then like we're forgetting the fact that we are connected and we are all human, having such a similar experience, even if we're on completely different sides of the political spectrum. And I just see that deception is beginning to become irrelevant, because people are wising up to the fact that, like, you know, we don't even need the internet to communicate anymore, because we are starting to learn that it's possible to visit each other in dreams or to share thought forms. And like, while most of us haven't even come close to tapping into that yet, we're on our way. And I do see that we are evolving.
Yes. Yeah. I was feeling everything you were saying about that. When you have enough awareness to be in the perceiver space and step back and be like, I don't even want to participate in this drama anymore, because I know that I don't want it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to defend. Like, you realize that's the ego with so much energy trying to defend its spot. It's like, you become the more powerful one with more influence of true, authentic connection and actually feeling better and vibrating higher if you step out of that. So you can argue all day, keep doing that, you know, keep arguing for your limitations and that other people have, like, you know, some kind of hold over you. Do that. I've never been into that as a kid. Like I feel like I've always been on this journey. Like, I never was like a fighter. I don't know. It's almost like I never had like a best friend. Like, I was everybody's best friend, but I don't know if that's relevant, but yeah. And I see that so clearly now. It's like, yeah, I'm not participating in the drama. It's me and God, and then whoever is meant to be there.
Yeah. See, I have gotten very caught up in all the drama of everything. And like,
that's the hard part, because it's like your body's participating in it, because that's the illusion. You're like, you know, you're going through the rack, and you're like, all that anger energy is coming out. And so when your perceiver space is big enough, you learn, okay, I'm not escaping the energy. That's what the autistics are showing us, right? I don't need to run away from it. I need to let it flow through. Like, I have like this breath work practice where I move my body like crazy. People would think I was a psycho crazy lady if they saw it, but I'm clear, baby. I'm clear.
Yeah. No, I do the weirdest breathing, moving things. Sometimes I'm driving, I'm just like, get it off. I don't want it. Yeah.
Yes.
Totally there. And the interesting thing was, like, have you ever seen the movie Spirited Away? It's a Miyazaki film. There's this creature called No Face, and he goes into this bathhouse, and the bathhouse represents kind of the chaos of society. And he starts like eating everybody, and he becomes this giant monster. But as he leaves the bathhouse, he's like literally vomiting up. And this is a children's movie, so it's kind of funny.
Wow.
He's like literally vomiting up everything, down to the last little like creature that he ate. This little frog goes hopping out of him, swimming away. and he becomes peaceful again. And that's how I felt in that moment, as soon as I made the connection, like, oh, like we don't have to live in that ego space anymore. Like it just suddenly deflated and went away.
That's right.
And it was like
beautiful.
Just it like so it's such an illusion. Like,
it's an illusion. And when you get that knowing and feeling and state of being where it's an illusion, like that's what I like to hold on to. I'm like, okay, here's the truth. Here's my reference point. Next time my ego's telling me like you have nothing to say and you're dumb and whatever, like just hold on to that truth.
Yeah. Well, Eileen, it's been so lovely chatting with you today. And before we bring things to a close, is there anything that you would like to share or leave us with, or how can we stay in contact with you? What are you up to that is important for us to know about?
Okay. Yeah. For anyone listening to this, I would say, and if this is resonating on any level, you're meant to be listening to this and you are being called to a higher truth of more love, and your spirit will show you what that means. And thank you for listening. And thank you so much for this space. This has been amazing. This is what I live for now, these type of conversations. And the work that I'm doing now, I can't take on any more. I'm in Louisiana. Can't take on any more letterboard clients myself, but I'm currently training someone and we're going to get her certified, me recertified. So if you're in Louisiana, around the Baton Rouge area, and you need a spelling coach, you can contact me. We'll have a wait list for you. And if you resonate with me at all and you're a non-speaking autism parent or someone who just resonates with me, because I have coached people in the past who were not parents or non-speaking autism parents, you can contact me. And let's see, I'm mostly on TikTok. I'm trying to decide if I want to get back on Instagram and Facebook. I feel like it's hard because TikTok's like, okay, I'm just going to say whatever, right? I'm filtering myself through the ears that I know are listening on Facebook, right? Not that it's bad or wrong, but it is what it is right now.
There's different audience vibes. In TikTok, I'm like a little bit more unhinged and loose in how I share on TikTok because like that's the vibe there. Instagram is so shallow to me, like very surface level. Like people just like want funny videos.
That's what I'm getting too, girl. I feel like TikTok has like that high vibe like algorithm, but that's what I'm getting too. Like so it's not just me. Yeah.
Well, we'll be sure to link everything for anybody who wants to get in contact.
Yeah, I'll have them get my TikTok on the link and my email, if that's okay. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And I'm so grateful for you and the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for who you are, how you communicate. And I hope that you just continue to bring that fire to TikTok because it's like having impact and it's so important. So thank you so much. Thank you for being here. And I really, truly hope you have the most awesome rest of your day.
Oh, thank you. You too. And I have to say thank you for being you. This has been the most, like, the safest space. And I love hearing you talk. You're so grounded and high at the same time. I'm like, it's everything. I love it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye, Eileen. Take care.
Bye.